So I'd just like to welcome you along this morning. This is a demonstration of the Sage Practice Solution software. My name is Liz and I'm going to be spending the next half an hour or so just taking you through the benefits of Sage Practice Solution for yourselves and your practice as a whole. So we'll just make a start on the home page of the software. So at the moment you can see there's a kind of workflow along the top. So this is where going forward you would add your client, so whether they be an individual or a business. Now you have the option of also adding jobs, which we'll come on to in a moment. But basically you can use the system as just a basic time recording package where you can add your own time as you're going through. So it is designed that everyone in the practice adds their own time. So at the moment you might be in the situation where people are maybe taking a note of their time that they're working on jobs, maybe in a diary or in Excel, and then someone's centrally processing those timesheets. So you do still have the option to do that with entering time batches where one person in the office could enter everyone's time. However, to make the most of the software, you really want to lose that duplication of work that's going on. So we've got this add time entry option all throughout the software, so it's in lots of different areas where people can simply click and add their time as they're going along. Now once they've added their time, depending on their access rights to the software, they have the ability to submit their timesheet, but they also have the ability to self-approve. So if it gets self-approved, that means that the time is on the work in progress ledger. So that time is going to hit that client straight away. Your other option is to go through an approval process. So you could have individuals within the practice who can submit their timesheet, but their manager, for example, would have to approve that time before it actually hits the client's work in progress ledger. When you're at the stage that you're ready to bill a client, we come along and we do that as the same process when you allocate the work in progress. So you browse to a client, you pick up the work in progress, either for that specific job or the entire work in progress for a client. You select what you want to write off, you select how much you want to invoice against it, and you generate the invoice all as one process. Now in the background of Sage Practice Solution, it uses Sage 50 accounts as a bookkeeping package, and that is a requirement of Sage Practice Solution, that Sage 50 accounts is working away in the background. Now if you don't have Sage 50 accounts, we do provide you with a one company version included with your Sage Practice Solution license. Now in the background what happens is that as soon as an invoice is generated through Sage Practice Solution, it will then automatically hit against your client's customer record in your Sage 50 account software. So that sales invoice is automatically posted for you. To receive the payment in, you can either take the payment through Sage Practice Solution, or to get the most out of the software, you want to be using Sage 50 accounts as your bookkeeping package. So you would just process your bank payments as normal, do your customer payment, customer receipt, and in there, that payments that you receive from the client will automatically be allocated to the invoice within Sage Practice Solution as well. So it's got that ongoing integration in the background. Again, just a time saver, because at the moment it could be the case that you're maybe producing invoices in Word and then somebody's having to manually update your own books for your practice with those sales values. If necessary, you also have the option to write off work in progress without allocating it to an invoice, but we want to avoid that as much as possible in the practice. So now we'll have a look at the software from the client list point of view. So to look at clients, we'll look at the client module first. You'll notice that there's different modules down the left hand side. So we've got clients, establishments, work, practice, letters and reports, and we'll be working through all of them just to give you an overview of what they cover as well. But first of all, we'll look at it from an all clients view. So if I click onto all clients, I'm able to see a list of every single client within the practice that we record time for, or that we have any information in here for. And in here, you'll notice on the client list, there's different columns of information, and depending on what you do within the practice, you can tailor these columns to suit you. So you've got an option up the top to customize your column selector. So I've got lots of invisible columns in here. So if there's anything at all on that list that you want to show, then feel free to add it. You might want to have individuals' NI numbers or something on there. Click OK and it will just add it along to the end. Now you can drag and drop columns, so you simply pick up a column and drag it over and it will go wherever you want it to go. Now the way that you customise this all client screen is particular to you, so you're not affecting anyone else's view within the practice, and it is designed that everyone in the practice has this software installed. It's designed that when you come in the morning, this is a piece of software that you open up, and this is your central database for all of your client information, for all of your compliance software. So if I just look at one of the clients that I have set up on here, so we'll open up Friends Limited. So to open a client, you just simply double click onto it and you'll be presented with different panes of information. Now again, the panes of information in front of you can be tailored. So for example, if you're not interested in seeing the fees list, for example, then you can change that pane just using this red toolbox along the top. And once you've got it the way set up that you want to use it, then again it depends on your access rights what you're able to see, and we'll come on and have a look at the access rights just later on in the practice module. So we'll just go through the process of adding some time to this client. So to do that, we'll just replicate the fact that I've been asked to maybe process some journals or print off some accounts using the accounts production software. So in my practice, it's Sage Accounts Production Advanced that I use. So I have the option to come over to the Programs link and click on to Accounts Production Advanced. And it links through to the relevant client and opens up their window. Now it might be that I've been asked to print off maybe the final set of accounts to give over to the client for signing. So I could come in here, generate those accounts and print them off. And I could say that that maybe took me about, I don't know, an hour to do. Maybe there was lots of different sets that needed done and I was having issues with the printer and all the usual things that happen when you print off accounts. So what I'll do now is I'll go back and I'll add my time for doing that. So if I open up Practice Solution again, you'll notice that under the Client Work area that we have all these different types of work that we do for the client. Now these are all jobs. So these are things that the client has said, yes, I agree that you're going to do my annual accounts, bookkeeping, etc. By default, this will be blank until you decide with the client what jobs you'll be doing for them. And then if you expand down the different areas of services that you provide, you'll get access to the different year ends that you've been working on. You've got a nice visible column of what's been billed previously for those other years. And then I could right click on the job that I've been working on and I have the option to add my time. So as I said, it took me about an hour to print off the various and send them over to the client. And I can put notes against that. Now with my access rights, I'm allowed to self-approve my time. So as soon as I click OK, that 1 hour of time will be added against my December 2012. Now you can work out from that I am charged out at £80 an hour, but I can have different charge out rates depending on the work that I'm doing. So for myself, I have standard and premium charge out rates. But that's just the way I have it set up. You can replicate however you charge individuals in the practice out at the moment. Now you also have the option, if you were wanting to maybe go and do some corporation tax work, you could click through into the corporation tax software and then you could come down to your corporation tax job and you could add some time against there as well. So I might have been, for example, drafting the CT600. And again, there's my time now added in against December 2012 for my 1 hour of doing that. So that's one of the ways of getting time onto the clock. So now that we have time against December 2012, it might be an idea to send a bill out to the client. So to do that, what you can do is you can right click on that element and you've got the option to just invoice for that one job, or you can invoice for everything that you've got on the clock for Friends Limited. So if we choose that option to pick up all of the work in progress, then you'll see that we have time on for December 10, 12, 13, corporation tax for 12. So there's a few different elements of work in progress in there. Now it's up to me what work in progress I allocate. If I want to see who's been working on the job, I can expand it down. My name is Accountant Sage, so in there you would have the names of all of the employees who've put time on the job, and you also have the ability to hover over and see exactly what they were doing when they fill out the notes section. So I'm going to say that I'm going to write off the time, so the £80 in there for the accounts 2012, and I'll also write off the £80 for the corporation tax work that I've done. Now the bill amount, in most cases you're probably not going to be billing exactly the same as your work in progress value. So we'll bill £200 in total, and it will allocate that on a pro rata basis between the two elements. So because it's the same amount of time, the same value, it will allocate £100 to each of those elements. So it means from a reporting point of view, not only can you report on the recovery of the client, but you can also report on how well the accounts has recovered for December 2012, but you can also report on how well that individual that's put the time on, how their recovery rate is as well. And so in this case, we have an over recovery of £40, so we are able to bill out £40 more than the work in progress value of 160 that we've allocated. Now that £40 is purely just for reporting purposes within Sage Practice Solution. It's this £200 that will hit your Sage 50 accounts. So if we click on to next, we now get the option to prepare the invoice. Things like invoice number are all set automatically. They just go up incrementally automatically within the Sage 50 software once it's a posted invoice. Now you can create draft invoices, which means that maybe the person on the job can actually draft an invoice, and then somebody maybe at manager level could mark that invoice as complete and posted. And only when it's posted will it hit Sage 50 accounts as a finalised invoice. Provisional, it will be in Sage 50 accounts, but it can still be tailored. But posted means it's an updated invoice and it is finalised. So we'll choose that option today. Now we can pick up the default paragraph for this service that we offer, and you set up your fee paragraphs just as part of the installation and configuration day. So when our professional services team come out to install the software, then they are able to help you set up your initial fee paragraphs. We also have things against services such as engagement paragraphs. So if you want to be able to generate your engagement letters from this software, and we do provide you with a whole bank of engagement letters, then you can set things like that up against the services you provide as well. Now this is a WIP based invoice, but if you didn't have any WIP on the clock, you can also generate a non-WIP based invoice at any point. It will automatically calculate the VAT, but you also have this nice functionality of it automatically splitting your sales between the different sales categories within Sage 50 accounts, so you've got a nice breakdown of where your sales income's coming from. And again, you may need that for some of your annual returns that you produce for your institute, your accountancy body. You can departmentalise as well if you use departments within your practice. Click on to finish. It will warn me that this will create a finalised invoice. I simply open it up in Word, and we provide you with one standard invoice template in Word, which is very easy to tailor. It's just as easy as a normal Word document to tailor that. Now I've tailored mine slightly just to add in the Sage logo. So in here you could have your own practice logo, you could have your own font, your own colours, your own layout style. So this replicates the style of your practice letters and reports currently. So everything's completed, it's created an invoice number, and then what you could do is you could just do File, Save and Send, and they send that as a PDF over to your client. So you're cutting down on the postage costs and you're speeding up the process, hopefully speeding up the amount of time it takes for the client to pay as well. So once you've generated your invoice, you'll notice that your work in progress will now reduce down to 0. Against there, it's now moved into the billed column, and we also have our new SPS ledger post for invoice number 51, which we can right click, and just to be doubly sure that it has gone into Sage 50 accounts, we can right click on it and select to show it in the billing system. So whenever it talks about the billing system, it's simply referring to Sage 50 accounts. So it will open up that invoice within Sage 50 accounts. It will note that it's already been posted, and the exact narrative that you had in Sage Practice Solution will be replicated over here. All of the details will come through and it will allocate to that client customer record. If you want to jump to that record, simply click onto the arrow. You can jump into the activity, and if you scroll down, you'll see that invoice being allocated out to the 2 different 4,000 codes for the nice split of your income. And that's how easy it is to process an invoice and write off the time, all in the one process within Sage Practice Solution. Okay, so now that we've been able to have a look at it from a time recording and billing point of view, we'll now look at the database features within the software. So to access the different fields of information within the business details pane, if we right click, we have the ability to edit the client. So this will give you an idea of the amount of fields and the amount of information that you're able to record about your clients within here. So it is designed to be the all-encompassing database, that you don't need any other database within your practice. Everything is managed through this piece of software. And in the background, it uses a SQL database, so it's really flexible when it comes to a reporting side of things, that you can report on absolutely any database field that's in there. You can filter by it, you can sort by it, and all of the usual functionality you would expect from a modern piece of software. So in here, you'll see the main details. So you can assign clients to partners and managers, etc. You can grade your clients, and a lot of the drop-down lists that you see within the software can all be tailored up within the settings menu. So under here, you also have the ability to record the date an engagement letter was sent out. As I mentioned before, we do provide you with a bank of engagement letters, which you can tailor to match your own practice wording and style. So it's quite handy to be able to record the date you sent out. Possibly somebody hasn't agreed it, so you could produce a report of people who have been sent an engagement letter but haven't sent it back to you. Additional details, so things like your registered number, if it's a charity, dates that they began and ceased trading, dates of incorporation, so just one central place for having all of this type of information. And it's also quite handy to take a note of where somebody came from, so who introduced them to the practice, so whether it was one of your staff members or another client. On the active details, you can start to categorize your clients. So if you wanted to do some specific marketing or some specific mail shots, depending on level of turnover, number of employees, that side of things. You can also record the quality of their records. Again, you can tailor these drop downs. And the type of records. So it may be the case that you want to send a letter out to everyone that does their books manually, to invite them to maybe have a look at the Sage 1 Cloud solution as an alternative. The billing details, this is a really handy feature within the software. It's the ability to bill a different client for this client's work in progress. So an example may be if you have directors that ask to be invoiced through their business for their personal tax return rather than individually. So this is what this setting's in here for. And then you can also set up credit terms, method of payment. So again, you could send out a letter to everyone that pays you by cheque to ask if they would move over to direct debit or standing order. Frequency of the payment, and then you can also set up budgets and limits within the software, and you can set that for work in progress, fees and debt, and again the software will flag up if you hit any of those limits. Now you'll be pleased to see we also provide some database features for the anti-money laundering side of the area of your practice that you need to record about your clients. So you have the ability to say whether the anti-money laundering status is not applicable, pending, or if the check's complete. The risk category being high, normal or low, when the next check's due, and again you can produce reports obviously looking at your client list from a money laundering point of view, so you're making sure that the checks are done when they are required and you're not missing anyone out. When the last check was done, who did it, and then we also have a checklist down the bottom so we can make sure that we know who the client is, who owns them, the nature of the client, who controls them, their business and economic purpose and the source of their funds, and also the purpose and nature of the relationship. You have a notes area in here which you can record additional information about them. You can record much more than you can see there. It's quite a small box, but it's unlimited in terms of the size of text. And then you also have a handy identification tab. So if you've met them face to face, if they've got any distinguishing features, you can type them into the box. And you can also select the type of ID you've received and put in their passport number and driving license in there as well. And again, those drop downs can be tailored, so if you have some other method of identification for money laundering, then you can stick that in your drop down list as well. The relationships tab, so this is where you can add additional relationships. You'll be able to quickly link over just further down the screen. We'll have a look at the relationships pane in a moment, but you can add additional relationships. So if you want to know who they bank with, who their solicitor is, for example, then you can simply just add them in there. And obviously when you add this one time, it will be there going forward as well. And then finally, we have your custom attributes tab. So if there's anything about the clients that you want to record and we haven't provided a field for it, then you can add in your own field. So when you get the software, this page is completely blank for you to simply customize for the fields that you want to be able to record. So I've added in a golf day, for example. So if I want to invite, I might not want to invite companies, I might just want to invite individuals to that golf day. So I can have that selected and then it will only ask that question on the relevant individual records. It won't ask it on a limited company. If it's a limited company, for example, then you'll see, because Friends Limited is obviously a limited company, then you've got the ability to have access to all of these fields. Now you can have tick boxes, so you can have yes or no's, date fields, text, you can have drop down lists, etc. in there as well. It's easy to customize to match the requirements of your practice. So that's you being able to tailor the business details. The other panes of information we've not looked at as yet, you can link it through to their Sage 50 accounts record. So if you do the bookkeeping and the payroll for them, you can link that through as well. You can record communications in here. So to do so, you can just simply right click and add, and you've got the option of taking a note of emails. So for an email, it would be copying and pasting the email in here. There's no link with Outlook. Fax, don't do them much anymore. Letters, meetings and phone calls, whether it's inbound or outbound. And as I mentioned, the add time entry buttons are dotted all throughout the software. So it's encouraging your staff to add the time as they're going along through the day. You can also set up tasks. So if we just look, I had set up a task in here to submit the CT600 for this client. It's due today, it's in progress. It started yesterday, it's a high priority. It's myself that's the owner, but I have assigned it to Kaylee Cole. So that means on Kaylee's screen, if you look at the bottom of mine, you'll see that I have 3 tasks which I have to work on, and Kaylee would also get a pop-up. It's called a bit of toast actually. She would get a pop-up to say that she's got a new task which has been assigned to her as well. We've had a look at the fees list. There's the overview of the relationships. So it's anything that you see in blue, it's a hyperlink. So if I was to come and want to have a look at Ruth Powers, who's one of the directors, I can simply click onto that hyperlink and it will open up Ruth's details in there. And then I can quickly go over here and click onto her personal tax record, and it will open up her record directly there as well. You also have navigator features, so if I go up to the top left hand side, I can click onto back, and that will take me back to the previous screen that I was in, so just similar to your Internet Explorer. And then down the bottom we just have some additional details and our custom attributes settings in there. Sage Practice Solution also integrates the client's information automatically with your other Sage Practice compliance software. So for example, if we were to amend an address within Sage Practice Solution, it would also update it within your accounts production and taxation software, and vice versa. If you were to change the information about the client within your accounts or your tax software, it would also update it within Sage Practice Solution. Now you will notice that you do have several address fields available within Practice Solution, so if your client was in different addresses at different times of the year or for different purposes, you can have multiple addresses set up for the one individual client. So we've updated the address to 444 The Towers. So if we open up our Accounts Production Advanced software, it will open up the client field, and we'll see that the address has now changed to 444 The Towers automatically. To change that back, so if that's incorrect and you want to change it, you can change it, as I said, within the Accounts Production Advanced software. And if we simply refresh Sage Practice Solution, it will revert the address back to The Towers. So I'm sure you've come across occasions where letters have been sent out to an old client address by mistake. Important information could be missed. So it's great knowing that you only have to update one area in one piece of software, and Sage Practice Solution will handle all of those changes within all of your other Sage Practice programs. So that's us had a look at the clients area. Now we'll look at it from a jobs point of view. So you can either look at all of the jobs for the practice or just my jobs. So these are ones where you're marked as a partner, manager or staff member on the job. So if we look at our annual accounts for 2012, for example, to open up the job, again, just simply click on the hyperlink, and within a job, you're able to put in the start date, so when the job is actually due to start, the period that's applicable for, and the due date. So you can sort your jobs by due date, you can sort them by start date, you can see who's responsible for them, you can set up specific WIP, debt and fee budgets and limits for a job, you can put notes and your communications against jobs, and you can charge a job out at a different rate from normal. So if you've got some specialist work, then you can put that as a separate job rate. You can say what sales record, what sales nominal you want this to go to within Sage 50, and then you've got your billing terms, which if they're any different, you can set them up for that job as well. And then any specific tasks. And if you want to add to any of these, you simply just right click and add, and you're able to do that within here as well. So that's the one individual job record for December 2012, but all of the jobs that I'm working on, I have them sorted at the moment by, or I have them grouped, should I say, by the different clients. You can change how you have them grouped simply by, again, under your column selector, you could want to group them by job name or service name, for example. So if you want to see all of your annual accounts jobs, all of your bookkeeping, corporation tax, so you can see what's due to be done. Now I have it sorted by due date, so I know when my work's due to be completed. You might want the oldest one first. So some of my jobs are very old, but some of them are complete, and you can tailor what you see. So you may only want to see active jobs, and it will squash it all up into just the ones that are active. You may want to see ones that are just overdue, so again you can see those in there as well. So really useful tools using the jobs. It's completely optional, you don't have to use jobs within the software, but doing so just means that you're able to manage your workload of your practice much more efficiently than you would have been able to do previously without a piece of software such as this. You've got your history and you've got your quick links to creating new businesses and new individuals. So just to work quickly through the modules, we have an establishment database where we provide you with a list of tax offices and VAT offices. And then you can go ahead and add in your own banks and accountants and solicitors. So ones that are kind of relatively local to you, set them up in here once, and then it means that on a client side of things, you're not having to type in the details every time, you're just simply picking it from the establishments database. Your work module is where you get an overview of your timesheet for the entire week. So you can see that I can jump back into previous weeks quite easily. You can see the time I have on the clock for this week. You can see my target is 37.5 hours. You can see the type of work I've been doing. And if I need to add in any more time, I can either do it by using the grid system down the bottom, or have the option to add a new time entry up the top. If I was working on something other than client work, so say I had some practice work which is non-chargeable time, then I can come in and do some practice development, for example. That maybe took me 2 hours today, and it was maybe investigating new FRS or something like that. Don't check my spelling, it's probably wrong. And then in there you'll see that we have now 2 hours against today. So I've done 4 hours for today, so I'm still 3.5 short for the day, so I'll need to keep working this afternoon. And then you'll see the total for the hour, which is down there, but it's also up here as well. So that's your own personal timesheet. If you do have the access rights to do so, you will have the ability to enter time batches where you can enter time for others. So you simply choose from the drop down whose time you're entering, and you put in all the details, which are relatively self-explanatory across the top. Now you can also enter expenses in here as well, so that's under the actions menu. You can add outlays, and you can add outlays in batches as well. And as I mentioned before, if you don't have the ability to do so, then you need somebody else to approve your timesheet, so that would happen from within here as well. And that person would be able to open up someone's timesheet and review all the details behind it before they approved it. And they can reject it, so they don't have to approve it, they can send it back to that individual. So we'll now have a look at it from the practice module point of view. Now I have my practice module set up to generate a few reports when I open it up. So I have my aged debtors report, where I want to see ones where I'm marked as the partner, or sorry, that I work on. So we have the balance, the debt, and the aging of the debt along there. We have our WIP and debt balances report in here, and you can look at all of the items, or you can simply look at the ones that you're interested in, depending on what clients you work on. Again, quite a nice report just to have your WIP balance and your debt balance in the one report. And any of these reports you see on screen, you can tailor them, so you can click and you can sort by any of the columns. So Pure Friends Limited have got £19,500 outstanding with us at the moment. And oh no, they've not got the highest work in progress. They're second to 835, so we could probably do with getting another bill out the door to them. So just having all of these things live on screen, so as soon as someone's timesheet's approved, that time is live on the clock. So if a partner or manager wants to see at what point a client is, at what stage they are, how much money they owe, if they're going out to meet them, for example, they might want to ask the client to take their checkbook with them if they've got a lot of money outstanding. Then all of these things are all live within the system, so they can access them whenever they need to. I've also got a report at the bottom of my practice menu, which shows me my company accounts filing deadline. So I've basically taken the year end, the current year end they're working in, and I've added on 9 months to that. Now we also have access in here to view the staff side of things. So as we mentioned before, we can set different access rights. So if we look at myself, for example, I am down, I'm actually Mr. Accountant Sage, and you can see all of the details against me, my staff code, my grade, etc. But there's also a contact details section, so you could start to use this as a kind of HR database within the practice as well. So you can keep a note of maybe personal mobile numbers, personal email addresses, and any notes about that individual staff member as well. We also have a defaults tab. So in here you can set up who approves the timesheet. So even if it's just yourself, then you have to self-approve. And in here, this is your charge out rates. So as I mentioned before, you can have more than one charge out rate for each individual. Now I'm on the standard 37.5 hours for the practice, but if I worked different hours, I can untick that, and all of my recovery and productivity rates, etc., will all be dependent on my target hours. So you don't need to take that into account separately, it calculates it automatically for you. If you want this individual to be notified if a WIP level exceeds the limit on a client or a job, or if they have notifications for new tasks, then you can tick those notification buttons. And then this is your security, so this is your access rights section, and it's really detailed in terms of what you can allow people access to. So it's not just a yes or no, they do have different levels of access within the different sections. So you might want practice admin to be switched off for most people. You might want timesheet approval to be switched off for most people as well. So nice to be able to have that ability to have everyone using the software, but only to the level that the partners or directors would like. And then finally we have our letters and reports module. And within here we do provide you with a whole bank of interactive reports and letters. Under the interactive reports, you can see there's different lots of reports in there. We can expand them all down so you can see the differences under each of the sections and how many different types of reports there are in there. But I've created my own group just called Sage Training Practice, so I've copied some of my favourite reports in here. So for example, staff analysis report, if I double click on it, I can expand it down and I can see, now that's only up until an old date, we can put it up until today and we can run the report again. So we can see the staff members, what their productivity and utilisation rate are, how much has been allocated in terms of work in progress, how much they've billed, what margin they've made, anything that's been written off, and their recovery as well. So all things like that available at a glance. If we jump, so other types of reports they might want to have a look at. I've got an anti-money laundering report for my practice, so again I can expand it down so I can see the client status is active, the next laundering check is due on or before the 18th of July, and you can see when the next check's due, I got it sorted by that column, when it was complete, ID that's been seen, and all of those type of items. So you can easily report on that side of things. Now any of those reports, again you've got the same ability to drag and drop columns, so if you want to push that over you can do so. Again, as I said before, if you want to sort by client name or something, you can do that as well. And however you leave it on the screen, when you click onto the print preview icon along the top, it will replicate that entire screen, so there's no fancy report designer, it's all just done from within that view of the software. Now you also have the ability to export, and you can export to Excel, clipboard, PDF, or over to email. Excel is a really good export. If I just replace that existing one, then you'll see in here you've got the same functionality brought over, so we have our subtotals of our high, low and normal items, and all of the formatting from the report comes over automatically into Excel as well. So that's your interactive reports, and they're called interactive because you can hover over any of these business names and you can click into their relevant records. And finally we have our letters. So as I mentioned before, we have a whole bank of letters, including engagement letters. So if I expand them down, You'll see that we have accounts to client, request for accounts information, audit letters, bank letters, and there's all of your engagement letters as well, and schedule of services. So any of those that you want to run, you simply double click onto them. So if I just choose, say, an engagement letter for companies, then when I double click on it, it provides me with a list of my clients, but only of my limited companies. And then I can select that I want to send this to more than one company maybe at the same time. And it will generate both of those as the equivalent of a mail merge into Word. Again, you can go in and amend these letters at template level so that you can make sure that they are aligned to your normal practice style and layout. So to edit one of the letters, as I mentioned before, the invoice is one single template that we provide, but you can create multiple invoice templates, and to edit the existing one you just right click on it and edit template, and this is exactly the same process if it was a standard letter. Click onto the edit button. In your case you would save the changes to a new document, but in my case I'll just open up the standard template. You can see very obvious, all of the merge fields have really good descriptions to them, so you know exactly what it is that's feeding in to that invoice. You can tailor it, so you can do your normal control all, you can change the format to whatever style you want. If you want to make it look really unusual, then you could do that. And then you also have the ability to add in other merge fields as well, but I would suggest starting off with one of our templates and just amending it from there, copying it, creating your own file name, and then you'll be able to run that report just as I did for any of the relevant clients. So that just brings us to the end of our Sage Practice Solution demonstration. It is a really useful piece of software to have in your practice, no matter what size your practice. It's suitable from someone just working on their own that really wants to keep on top of what jobs are making them money, keep somewhere central for all of your client information, and be a great way of generating reports and letters for all of your clients in there as well. So thank you for your time, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you.